evening. I need a drop of red to prepare myself for this particular review. This review hurts. It hurts me on a deep and personal level. So the book in question is Ulysses by James Joyce. As you can tell, this is an old, venerable and well-worn copy. It was actually my parents' copy. I've been trying to reread this book about once every 10 years since I was probably about 11. 11 was definitely too young to start. I don't hate this book. I don't. This time, 2023, I finally made it to 141 pages. About every time I reread it, I get a little bit further, but at 141 pages, I did not finish it. I'd had enough. I really don't actually hate it, but I find it deeply frustrating. And the most frustrating thing about it is the entire world seems certain that this is a classic of mass proportions. It's absolutely amazing. You know, I get it. There's a lyric quality to the writing, and I admit that reading it, it sounds beautiful inside your head as you read the lyrics to it. Lyrics more than script, to be honest. I will certainly revisit it again one day, probably in about 10 years. And I am never getting rid of my parents' copy because one day it might be the very book I want to read more than anything else, under very specific set conditions. I imagine it as dementia or brain injury that means that I can't remember anything that happened 5 minutes ago. This book would be perfect because it sounds beautiful, every sentence is nice, but the lack of events or continuous plot won't impact you because you have no memory of anything that happened 5 minutes ago. So, saving it till then. Okay, so one of the reasons this is considered such a literary milestone, such a classic in its own lifetime, and such a significant work of modern fiction, blah, 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 is the stream of consciousness within which it is written. I don't know that Joyce invented it, but I think this book popularized it, and the stream of consciousness writing is still very popular. At the absolute best of times, I've got limited tolerance for stream of consciousness writing. I am just not a fan. I know it can be beautiful, but I want a little bit more reality structure and sentence structure, and stream of consciousness really does it for me. A paragraph or two integrated into a larger story, sure. But however much literary prize boards love it, and they adore it, it's not for me. I am absolutely not suited to read books for literary prize boards. The Booker Prize Board will doubtlessly be terribly upset by this. There you go. Anyway, so apparently James Joyce wrote this as a modern take on Homer's epic poem, the Odyssey, with Ulysses being a Latinized version of the Greek name Odysseus, who was Homer's hero of the Odyssey. I love mythic fiction. I love rereading old mythology. The Greek mythology is not my favorite. I can't even tell you why. There's just something about the underlying social consciousness, the group social beliefs behind the Greek poetry that doesn't really rock my boat. Haha, Odysseus was in a boat, sorry. Does not rock my boat as much as other ones. Like, take the Finnish Kalevala. There is nothing not beautiful about that mythology. Take even the Old Testament Bible. There's a lot of that mythology has got real, solid, rocking, epic fantasy themes. Yeah, lots of myths actually I do like. The Greek isn't my favorite. They can be difficult to read, and though I have read the Odyssey before, it's been a long time. I'm probably actually due to reread it again. Ulysses, however, has none of the adventures that Homer was kind enough to gift his readers with, or his listeners, perhaps at the time. His audience. Homer had an audience, and he knew what audience was wanted. They wanted adventure, they wanted experience, they wanted stuff. James Joyce, however, had other plans. than Homer. And as my understanding goes, Joyce meant to have outright claimed that his purpose in writing this tome was to keep professors and readers confused for years, and it seems to have worked very well. But I am not that person. I am not a professor, and I am not a reader who wants to feel confused or stupid or condescended to, which I feel this book does in spades. So yeah, I don't need confusion in my reading. There's plenty in life. Don't need it in book format. I also know perfectly well, yes, I'm sure there's people out there thinking this right now, there are hundreds of explanations and roadmaps and probably dozens, if not hundreds of books published on how to enjoy Ulysses. Sure, you've got books to help you get the jokes, books to help you understand the references. You've got books out there to make the points relevant to you. How pompous and stupid is that? Joyce did this on purpose, but unless I was being paid for it, I would not spend, there's not one reason on earth why I would spend all that money buying hundreds of books to explain to me why this fiction, this work of fiction, is any good. It's a novel. If a novel needs other books to explain it, is that a good novel? I argue not. To me, that is not a good book. So, bye-bye, Ulysses. Once again, I might try you in, I don't know, 2034 or so, when I've forgotten how much you annoyed me this time. And maybe then I'll make it to page 151 and still have no idea what's happening or what the points are or what's fun about it. Maybe I should watch a YouTube video explaining to me why Ulysses is really, really important. Do you think I should do that? Don't like your chances. So, Ulysses, modern classic, each to their own. Honestly, there are 100 books on that shelf behind me that are far more fun and probably have more relevance for all of humanity than James Joyce managed to put into that book, which he wrote to make you confused.